Thank you,
Joining
Reverend
me
Sean.
now is my panel, Angela Rye, host of One on One with Angela Rye. I'm sorry, On One with Angela Rye, and political strategist, and of course David Jolly, former Florida Republican congressman and an MSNBC contributor. Let me start with you, Angela Rye. And the reason I got tripped up is I'm used to, when I was a kid, James Brown used to say, get on the one. Now we say On One with Angela Rye. But Angela, those numbers again. Recent polling has President Biden with high approval ratings. 70% of Americans approve of his handling of the pandemic specifically. Do you expect the passage of the American Rescue Plan to bolster those numbers even further?
I do, Rev, and let me tell you why. There are three things in particular in the American Rescue Plan that I think haven't gotten enough attention. And once people really start understanding what is all there, it certainly will help the Biden administration, but most importantly, it will help the American people. I'm thinking in particular of the work of Senator Raphael Warnock, Senator Cory Booker, and the Agricultural Committee Chair in the House, David Scott, who worked on $5 billion in relief to Black farmers, Indigenous farmers, and Latinx farmers. We have talked a little bit about student loan debt forgiveness, but the fact that there will be no taxes on whatever is forgiven when Joe Biden's administration just decides to move on that with executive action, that's another important pillar. I think the last thing is funding around a vaccine. And the reason why I'm touting this before anything is really rolled out in a robust and meaningful way in our communities is because I'm hopeful that with this targeted funding, there will be an awareness campaign about where to go to get the vaccine. I'm fresh off my first dose, Rev, and I think it's important for people in our community to understand where to go and why it's so important.
Absolutely.
That means leveraging Black vendors. So yes, his approval rating will go up if he relies on the people, and I think that they've demonstrated that they have the ability to do that. I'm
fresh off my first shot, too. David, let me go Republicans to you on this. Republicans demanded that the stimulus payments are being more narrowly targeted this time around. And Democrats actually took that suggestion into account for the final bill. And still they're making bad faith arguments about how the Democrats wouldn't compromise so they couldn't vote for it. Will the American people see through this? We saw when they tried to block the Affordable Care Act, started going to their home districts. They were town hall meetings. Districts repelled to them saying, wait a minute, we need this kind of aid. We need this rescue.
Yeah, Rev, there's a lot of things that are coming into play here, and particularly in Republican districts, you have state and community leaders that were beneficiaries of this bill that said, hey, our town, our county, our first responders needed the federal assistance, so why would you consider voting against it? But I think we're also seeing something play out. It dovetails with what Angela said, that look, Republicans represent a disproportionate amount of relative white, middle to upper income communities in America where the job displacement and economic loss simply wasn't the same as it was in other communities. And so that's why, while 60% plus support this bill, I think Republicans have their base falling in line because Republican voters are acting, and Republican leaders, just with the reflexive partisanship that we saw during the Obama years, that they will just oppose whatever the Democrats and Biden put forward, and Republican voters will reward them for that.
Angela, Republicans have also been holding up President Biden's cabinet nominees for weeks, not allowing the votes to be held even after complete hearings. What gives? I can't hear her. Okay, I think we lost your mic. Let me go to David then. David, the former president, talking about Republicans and Trump, has sent cease and desist letters to Republican organizations demanding they not use his name and likeness in their fundraising materials. Do you think he genuinely wants them to stop, or will he just demand a percentage of the ad buys or some other licensing deal where they have to pay him to use his name like at many of his hotels?
That's it, Rev. And I'm laughing because, look, this couldn't happen to a better group of people than the leaders of the RNC and the NRCC and the NRSC, who the leader that they exalted, that they helped get elected, has turned around and said, hey, I'm done with you now unless you're going to give me a cut of the profits of your fundraising. Look, Donald Trump will make his money from here forward through domestic politics and international business. His domestic business brand is falling as a result of all the events we've seen. Internationally, though, it's as high as it's ever been. He knows he can make money in domestic politics. And so for him to say to the people of his very own party, you can't raise a dime using my image unless I get a cut of it, suggests that Donald Trump has been in this all along just for Donald Trump and lying in his own pocket.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise. That's right.
Angela Rye and David Jolly, thanks to both of you. Coming up, as we remember what giants before us did 56 years ago today, we must not forget that the fight for our rights is far from over. That's why I'm asking you all to rise up. But first, my colleague Richard Louis with today's other top news stories.